Okay. Oh, hi. Welcome, everyone. Hope you're vibing out to that very relaxing music. My name is Bill Breen. I teach English at Anoka Ramsey, and I'm based on this Cambridge campus. I welcome you to our Minnesota Writers Series, which I looked up recently, and we have been doing this for 38 years on this campus, which is longer than some of us have been alive, some of us in this room.
Not me.
Not me,
Most of
but we do this for our students, we do this for our college community, but we also do it for the whole East Central community. So please spread the word, and we're grateful for some of our partners like Scout and Morgan Books, the independent bookstore here in town, and also our East Central regional libraries that promote our events and give you access to our authors' books. But we're proud of bringing the very best in Minnesota writers to this stage. And of course, like a lot of things, we took a hit during the COVID years. We started going fully online for a couple years. We did that, and that was great. We had some really great events online. Now we're trying to pull people back into the building, and there's something a little bit more special about gathering together and being in the flesh, as they say, face to face. So thank you all for doing that. We're also live streaming this event for the first time. So we have some folks joining us on Zoom, and they can enter questions in the chat because we'll do some Q&A toward the end of the event. And then there are refreshments, as I'm sure you all saw. Help yourselves to those, and our author Emma will also be out there to sign books and say hello to you. I want to thank just a few more people before I kick things off with an official introduction of our author. Thanks to Victor and our OIT people for helping us get set up for the live stream. Thanks to all of our facilities people, the whole college community. There's a lot of people that help out. Thanks to our English department, to Dr. Kelly Meyer, who will be interviewing our guest author tonight. Our bookstore, Jessica Travers, is out selling books if you are interested in purchasing a copy of Emma's book tonight as well. I think that's all the people I need to thank.
I'm not responsible for
Thank you.
You're not responsible. And EPA Productions, who's doing the live stream for us tonight. All right. Emma Torzs is a writer, teacher, and occasional translator based in Minneapolis. Her fiction has been honored with an NEA Fellowship in Prose, a World Fantasy Award for Short Fiction, and an O. Henry Prize. Her debut novel, Blood Sister Scribe, was an instant Sunday Times bestseller, a national indie bestseller, a Good Morning America book club pick, an Indie Next pick, one of the New York Times 100 notable books of 2023. There's more. One of NPR's best books of 2023, and acclaimed by reviewers from the New York Times, NPR, The Washington Post, Locust Magazine, The Guardian, Kirkus, Publishers Weekly, and more. It's available, or soon to be available, in 13 languages and counting. Her stories have been published in journals such as Plowshares, Uncanny Magazine, Lightspeed, Strange Horizons, and American Short Fiction. And Emma currently teaches at Macalester College. Please welcome Emma Torzs.
Thank you. Hello.
Yes, welcome.
Hello.
Hello. I was watching your face when they did that introduction. I feel like you did kind of like a listen to all that for little old me face.
The face was, oh, they got this bio from my website.
Oh, okay.
I forgot to send a shorter one. That was the face. The face was, oh, this is the full one.
We want it. We would want the
Okay.
full one. Yes, we would want
Usually
the full
I
one.
curtail it a little. That's for schmoes on the internet.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Well, the question that I wanted to ask based on how you feel about all of that is, how do you process that success and that global reach of your work, if at all?
Wow, hard-hitting question right off the bat. It sounds really impressive, but on a daily basis, it certainly doesn't feel different or impressive. I think the only time that I am like, oh my gosh, I made it, I'm a real writer, is when I do events like this and people show up and people have read my book. So it's like shocking to me to meet people in the wild that have read my book. My dream is to someday see somebody like on an airplane reading my book. That's the real dream. But my day-to-day life is basically the same. Yeah, so I don't know if I've like processed it. Yeah. I ghosted my therapist for like a year and a half after the book came out because I was like, I don't want to think about it. Yeah. And that's kind of been my MO since then. Yeah, so I don't know.
Well, I hope that comes true for you, that sometime in the future you see someone reading it on a plane.
I hope so too. Somebody read it on a plane for me someday, please. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Well, a good question to start with, since this is our Minnesota Writers Series, I wanted to ask you, are you originally from Minnesota?
I am not. I'm from Massachusetts, and I came here 20 years ago to go to Macalester College, where I now teach. I swear I left for a while, but I did come back. But I will never move. You will have to drag me out of Minnesota. I love it so much. I actually just bought a house last year, and I plan to never leave, and I'm a total evangelist for Minnesota. And I was just telling Kelly, actually, I feel like I've now hit the point where I've lived in Minnesota longer than I ever lived in Massachusetts, and I was really excited when I hit that point. I'm like, now I can really say I'm Minnesotan. But when I go back to Massachusetts, my Massachusetts family accuses me of being really Midwestern. And in the Midwest, people are still like, oh my God, you're so East Coast, you talk so fast, you're very blunt. So I guess maybe I'm like kind of 50-50 fully at this point. But yeah, Minnesota forever.
Yay. Well, I love that. Do you think Minnesota is a great place for writers?
I think Minnesota is an amazing unsung place for writers, Minneapolis in particular. A lot of writers you may have heard live in New York City, a place that I will never live and I don't even really like to go to. The nice thing about being a writer in Minnesota is that the publishing world still does take place mostly in New York and LA. So you don't have to, when you meet writers in Minnesota, you are just meeting normal people who can't do anything for you. Whereas in New York, I think you like go to parties and everybody's like an editor or an agent and like they run a magazine. And so there's this sort of networky thing that happens when there are lots of opportunities that a lot of people are vying for. But in Minnesota, every writer you meet is like a regular, normal person living their life kind of outside of that. But there is an amazing amount of support for the arts from the government in Minnesota. Like we have the Minnesota State Arts Board, Minnesota Regional Arts Council, and the Jerome Foundation, the McKnight Foundation. We just have an amazing amount of support for the arts that is hard to parallel in other places. So it's a great place to be a writer. And we have tons of bookstores, incredible bookstores.
So stay in Minnesota.
Stay in Minnesota.
Aspiring writers.
Don't let them pull you to New York if you want to be a writer. Or go, but then, come back.
I'm a transplant too, so that it makes me happy to hear that about Minnesota. What book or writer was an early inspiration for you? Or if not an inspiration, just something you loved? A reader or book that you loved when you were younger?
That is a hard question for me because immediately every book I've ever read like fills my mind and then leaves my mind. What did I read as a young person, Nicole? This is my friend who I met, by the way, my freshman year of college in a creative writing class at Macalester, also from Massachusetts, also will never go back. Also now teaches at Macalester. Oh, we read, honestly, this is going to sound like such a nerdy answer, but we read Moby Dick in a college class, and you sure would not know reading this book that it was like a big influence on my thinking because it has nothing to do with this. But at the time, I was really floored by Moby Dick because I didn't realize that classics that were that long could be good. And when I first started reading Moby Dick, I remember I Googled the phrase Moby Dick funny ? Because I was like, I must be reading this wrong, but like these jokes are really funny, but they can't really be jokes, right? Because it's this big famous book. And so that had a real effect on me. And then I read a ton of fantasy as like a young person. Do you all read fantasy? Are you young fantasy readers? I recently read a series to try to relate to like the youth because my students have all read Percy Jackson. Have you read Percy Jackson? Raise your hand, youth, if you've read Percy Jackson. Okay, actually that's fewer than my students. What about Naruto? No? Okay, I felt like those were like the two student touchstones. What did you read as children? What are your like fantasy books? Did you read as kids? No? What about you? You look so skeptical. What did you read? Me? Well, sure, you, but I meant the one next to you. What did you two read?
I probably read like more graphic novels and like Junie B. Jones a lot when I was younger.
Okay, Junie B. Jones
Junie B.
is
Jones,
awesome.
yes.
I loved books about kids who had like behavioral problems for reasons that we don't have to go into here. But I also really loved, oh my gosh, Beezus and Ramona. Did any of you read Beezus and Ramona? Ramona Quimby, that's the one I loved. I loved Ramona Quimby, age 8. She was always in trouble. I loved like Anastasia Krupnik. Did any of you read the Anastasia books? Lois Lowry, The Giver. Those were sort of like the foundation of my reading as a kid, like a really little kid. And then I read the George R.R. Martin series when I was in high school. The only 3 of them were out at the time. And then I read the 4th one in college, and then I stopped reading them. Have any more come out? I think they have, but I stopped. But I was obsessed in high school. I loved A Song of Ice and Fire. What else did I read? I don't know. I've read a lot of books. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I
love
can't. What did
that.
you read?
Well, what I was just thinking is that I will tell you I've never read Moby Dick. And I've also never heard anyone describe it as funny, so now now I want to read it.
You should read it in college in a classroom though, because life is too short to read it on your own. It's like so long. I mean, you should read it on your own, but it's really great to read classics when you're in college because you're much less likely to pick those up for pleasure reading. And there are some books that are difficult, and it's really nice to have curators and guides and a conversation that you're going to come to. So this is my plug for reading books that seem really hard in college. Like you should read Toni Morrison in college. Who else do I think you should read in college? Virginia Woolf, probably you should read in college. I don't know. What else? What do you think you like should read in a guided discussion?
Shakespeare.
Shakespeare, yeah, you should read Shakespeare in college. I know, isn't that a shame?
Even just a little bit.
I'm still so pro Shakespeare requirement. Yeah. Do you have a Shakespeare requirement here? Like a pre-1900s? No. Okay.
No.
Yeah, you should at least read one Shakespeare play in college.
Yeah. It's a good social experience.
Yeah. They're also really funny. This is what nobody tells you, is that a lot of these classics are so funny. And I would never read them if somebody didn't force me to.
Midsummer Night's Dream.
Hilarious. Midsummer's Night Dream is so funny. The Guthrie just did an amazing production of A Midsummer's Night Dream in Minneapolis, and I was like screeching with laughter. It's so good.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I don't have a reader question next, but the writerly question I wanted to ask, because I think a lot of our students here are kind of finding their voice as writers as well as their confidence. So kind of a layered question here, but when did you first see yourself as a writer? And I guess kind of, was it an internal shift, or was there like external validation that played a role in that, like positive feedback that you received, that first feeling of positive feedback?
I am definitely one of those people who has been writing since I learned how to write. I immediately used that skill to like write stories. My mom recently unearthed like the first book I wrote, which was 6 pages long when I was 6. And it was about a redheaded girl named Nancy whose best friend fell into a coma, and Nancy used like telekinesis to talk to her and bring her out of the coma. I told this in 6 pages in like 1 syllable words, It's like Nancy's friend fell and hit her head. But that was like, I was pretty young, and you can tell that I couldn't even really like write very well yet, but I was immediately like, oh my gosh, I have a great story to tell. And I have a younger sister, and I would tell her stories all the time. And then as I got older, I wrote what I now realize is fan fiction, but I had no idea that that's what I was doing at the time. Like every book I loved, my best friend and I would like write each other letters in the voice of those characters. The ones that I really remember are, has anybody seen the TV show or read the book Good Omens?
Yes.
was by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, unfortunately. But it's the stars of the show are an angel and a devil who are like besties but also enemies, and I would write in the devil and she would write in the angel, and we would just send letters back and forth when we were like 10 maybe. And then I graduated to writing stories about the Beatles because I was obsessed with the Beatles. We did write some Harry Potter fan fiction. We wrote like 150 pages of the 4th book when we were waiting for it to come out when we were 13. There were lots of banshees. So I was writing what I didn't know was fan fiction. Then I went to college and I took a creative writing class, and that was my first like little jolt of outside validation, I would say, to answer your question. It's also just amazing. I don't know how many of you have gone from like writing privately to writing in a class setting. It's really wild when people start reading your work and responding to it. I found that very intoxicating, especially because so much of my work had only been read by one other person, my childhood best friend. And to have people talk about it, even if what they were doing was like ripping it apart and critiquing it, I felt was really amazing. And I still feel that like when I get edited, I love to be edited because I know that my editor has paid almost as much attention to my work as I did when writing it. And it takes so long to write. So I love critique because it means that somebody has really put attention into my work. And my creative writing professor said I did a good job. I was like really susceptible to that. I think I took 2 creative writing classes in college, but I sure was still writing fan fiction. And by that point, I knew that it was called fan fiction. And I think I wrote like 2 million words of fan fiction in about 4 years. I had a crazy, I was typing all the time. My college roommate can tell you that I would just always be in the corner on my computer. She's like, what are you doing over there? And I was like, homework, don't talk to me. But I was not writing homework, I was writing fan fiction. And I do not have it. How many of you have read or written fan fiction? Anybody? Okay.
Awesome.
I see tentative hands going up.
Yeah.
It is not the same as writing original work. That is something that I learned when I started writing my own original work, but it does give you like the stamina of knowing that you can complete things. So after I graduated college, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was working at a liquor store and crying most nights, I would say. And I asked one of my former professors, like, I just don't know what to do. And he was like, you should just go get your MFA in creative writing because it will be 2 years where you just get to write. Mm-hmm. And I had not taken myself remotely seriously as a writer before I went to get my MFA, which I got at the University of Montana in Missoula. And once I started writing my own original work, I stopped writing fan fiction, although I still read it, and I'm a big fan of fan fiction. But like the itch that the fan fiction was scratching was scratched much better for me, at least by like writing my own original work. And also I just didn't have time to engage with like random people on the internet. My mind was very taken up by the drama that was happening in my MFA cohort at the time. So I showed up being like, well, I'll just do this for a couple years. I really don't remember. I was describing it to somebody as like a train that I accidentally got on thinking I would get off once like I'd gotten to the right stop, but I'm just still on the train somehow. And I loved talking about books with other people that love books so much. And the nice thing about getting your master's in fine art is that it is technically, when you're studying writing, it's technically a terminal degree, meaning you can teach at the college level with just 2 years of a master's program. Getting your PhD is incredibly hard, as maybe you can confirm. And I was not interested in going that route, but I did want to teach. So I knew that if I got my MFA, I could leave with an actual marketable skill, which would be teaching. But what they don't tell you is that it's MFA plus record of publication. Mm-hmm. And that is essentially like the stand-in for the PhD. So I don't even know where I am in answering your question anymore, but blah, blah, blah. I started writing stories. I started publishing them. I wanted to teach at Macalester College really badly. I sent them my resume like every year. And then eventually I did teach there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the end. I think we got me up to like 23 years old, but you can fill in the rest, yeah.
Well, I was thinking about how people say write what you know, and it sounds like in some ways you did because you knew these fictional worlds and you engaged with them to write fan fiction, and then obviously began creating your own worlds. But yeah, how true is this through your, writing journey or your evolution as a writer, the idea of write what you know?
I think for me, it is most clear in place and feeling more than anything else. Like all of the places that I wrote about in this book are places, no, that's a lie. I've been to Vermont and I love Vermont and I've thought a lot about Vermont. I've been to England. It exists large in my mind. And I actually started this book because I wanted to go to Antarctica. And there's something called the National Science Foundation's Artist and Writers Antarctic Grant. So you can apply to spend a season in Antarctica with like scientists. And I really wanted to go, but I didn't have a project to pitch myself. So I was like, I'm going to write the fake chapter of a fake novel and send it to them. And I wrote the first chapter of this novel. And then COVID hit and the grant was canceled. So I never got to apply to go to Antarctica, but I did write this book. But place for me is like, I feel much more comfortable writing things if I know the place or if I'm familiar with the place. And I think I wrote like emotional truth more than A to B truth. I mean, there are some, I have a sister. This is a sister book. I have a neurotic Jewish father who, thank God, is still alive. Other than that, there's not much that I have in common with any of these characters at all, except that I have felt the feelings that they have felt.
Yeah.
So I think more about emotional truth than factual truth, and writing what you know is a much more like wide flung directive than if you're like a white woman from Massachusetts, you must also write about growing up in Massachusetts. I haven't written much about Massachusetts, not that I won't. Like I've lived on the same block in South Minneapolis for almost 12 years, and I've never written anything set there. Not that I won't, but like the facts of my day-to-day life rarely translate into my fiction at all. But the facts of like what I have felt while living my life are often found in my fiction.
That's a really beautiful answer, the emotional truth piece, and I feel really validated in the question that I asked you.
It's a really good question.
Well, actually, what's interesting is the question I have right after this that you already kind of answered is, why were you drawn to Antarctica as one of your book's key locations? So maybe you can talk more about why you wanted to go there so much.
I love winter. Maybe you can tell because I love Minnesota. And an unsnowy, warm winter in Minnesota makes me furious. This winter was okay. Last winter was horrible. I'm still like jonesing for a real winter. Maybe it's different here. I don't know what it was like. But in the cities, it just was not enough snow for me. It was really cold, but not enough snow. And I've always been fascinated with winter. And I think a lot about climate change and what we'll lose. And one of the things we're going to lose is the Arctic and the Antarctic. And they're incredible. I mean, the Antarctic is the biggest desert on Earth, but we don't talk about it like that. It's the driest place on Earth. And in terms of where things grow, it's like one of the least biologically fruitful places on Earth. I find that fascinating. But more than that, what I find fascinating is the social life that develops when you are on a really isolated piece of land in basically a dorm room with scientists from around the world. That is so fascinating to me. And I really love niche social environments a lot. I love to be a part of them. I love to hear about them. And so for a while, I was just watching blogs of scientists in Antarctica and electricians in Antarctica. And I've had some friends who have done electrical work in Antarctica.
Oh, wow.
One of them like lost his mind and came home early. He was like, I cannot hack this. I'm so lonely. It's so isolated. And the other one loved it and did like 3 seasons in Antarctica. So I did consult my electrician friend. All the electrical stuff comes from Jacoby, thanks to Jacoby. But yeah, that's what draws me is like those specific social settings that you don't get anywhere else. College is sort of like that, especially when it's a residential college, but even like in a classroom environment, that is such a very specific social setting where like the power structures are really interesting and the characters are fascinating. The setting is very limited. So that's why I wanted to go to Antarctica. And someday I will. Yeah.
And then on the plane, you see someone reading your book.
Yeah. Oh, wouldn't that be so great?
I love that.
All my dreams coming true at once.
I have another sort of global question in that one of the facts in your bio, I can't remember if it was one of the ones Bill read or not, but your book has been translated into 13 languages, and you have worked as a translator. Does that translation work relate to your creative writing at all? Do they like intersect or speak to each other?
Yes, I think so. I wanted to like practice translation kind of as a backup plan in case this whole like original writing thing didn't work out. So I was in the process of translating my friend who's a Mexican writer, Andrea Chapela's first short story collection, which is like was huge in Mexico, but just hasn't been translated into English yet. And so I was working with her and we were translating like story by story and then publishing them sort of as we translated them. And I hate to say it, but once I was like, oh, this writing thing is going to work out, I was like, oh, dang, I really don't have time to like translate these stories. But that's fine because she was like, she had a whole thing where she was like, I don't want this book translated into English. And so I still translate her sometimes. Like I just did a couple short pieces for her for an application that she was sending in that could only be sent in English. And so I think those stories are coming out in like a British journal. But I love language, and I really enjoy translation. It's totally different than writing. It feels like doing a jigsaw puzzle, basically. Like you have to fit all these little pieces into all these little holes. So, you know, if you say to me like, oh, I'm exhausted, there's many different ways that you can say I'm exhausted in Spanish. So you have to think about like the context of the tiredness or, you know, if there's just all these fun nuances. So I think it has changed the way I write my original work in that I now imagine a translator a lot. Like I have a little translator in my brain. And actually lately I've been drafting only in Spanish because my Spanish is not good enough to make beautiful sentences the way that I want to. I get super hung up on like the sentence by sentence writing. But I would say 90% of the sentences that I write in a novel project get deleted. And yet I can't stop belaboring them and being precious with them, even when I know that they're going to get cut. So I've been drafting in my bad Spanish and then translating my own work from Spanish to English and like doing the editing then. I've been telling everybody this hack. If you're bilingual but not really, really good in one of the languages, this is a great way to get your words on the page.
That is amazing.
Yeah. My Greek friend is trying it and she's like, it's working.
I think of all the different like rituals and practices of writers. I don't know that we've ever heard one like that before. I love that.
I just started like a month ago, but I'm telling everybody just in case it helps you, like it's helped me.
Unlock something.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you want to read something to us now? And then we'll do some more questions.
Sure. I'll just read you the prologue.
Oh, I love that.
If it's like 2 pages.
Yeah.
Does that work?
That works.
Okay. This prologue takes place a few years before the main action of the book. So it's kind of like a setup. But it will introduce you to a couple of the characters. Yeah?
Yes, please.
Warning for immediate dead body. It's like second sentence. Corpse.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's the first sentence. Sorry. Oh, yeah, it's sort of a graphic description of a dead body. Now you know, you can plug your ears or leave the room. Abe Calate died in his front yard in late February beneath a sky so pale it seemed infected. There was a wintry wet snowbite to the still air, and the sprawled open pages of the book at his side had grown slightly damp by the time his daughter Joanna came home and found his body lying in the grass by their long dirt driveway. Abe was on his back, eyes half opened to that gray sky, mouth slack and his tongue drying blue, one of his hands with its quick bitten nails draped across his stomach. The other hand was resting on the book, forefinger still pressed to the page as if holding his place. A last smudge of vivid red was slowly fading into the paper, and Abe himself was mushroom white and oddly shriveled. It was an image Joanna already knew she'd have to fight against forever, to keep it from supplanting the 24 years' worth of living memories that had, in the space of seconds, become more precious to her than anything else in the world. She didn't make a sound when she saw him, only sank to her knees and began to shake. Later, she would think he'd probably come outside because he'd realized what the book was doing and had been struggling to reach the road before he bled out, either to flag down a passing driver to call an ambulance or to spare Joanna from having to heave his body into the bed of her truck and take him up their driveway and past the boundaries of their wards. But at the time, she didn't question why he was outside. She only questioned why he had brought a book along with him. She had not yet understood that it was the book itself that had killed him. She only understood that its presence was a rupture in one of his cardinal rules, a rule Joanna herself had not yet dreamed of breaking, although she would eventually. But even more inconceivable than her father letting a book outside the safety of their home was the fact that it was a book Joanna did not recognize. She had spent her entire life caring for their collection and knew every book within it as intimately as one would know a family member. Yet the one lying at her father's side was completely unfamiliar in both appearance and in sound. Their other books hummed like summer bees. This book throbbed like unspent thunder, and when she opened the cover, the handwritten words swam in front of her eyes, rearranging themselves every time a letter nearly became clear. It was in progress, unreadable. The note Abe had tucked between the pages was perfectly legible, however, despite the shakiness of the hand. He had used his left. His right had been fixed in place as the book drank. Joanna, he had written, I'm sorry. Don't let your mother in. Keep this book safe and away from your blood. I love you so much. Tell Esther. It ended there without punctuation. Joanna would never know if he'd meant to write more or if he only wanted her to pass on a final message of love to the daughter he hadn't seen in years. But kneeling there on the cold dirt with the book in her hands, she didn't have the wherewithal to think about any of this yet. She could only stare at Abe's lifeless body, try to breathe, and prepare herself for the next steps. Dun, dun, dun.
I mean, if that doesn't make people want to read more.
You always start with a dead body, kids.
So that's your prologue.
That's the prologue.
Did you write that first, or is it something you circled back and wrote once more of the book was in place?
I actually wrote the prologue pretty early on. And I had a friend, Leslie Arima, who was one of the visiting writers here a few years ago. And she's one of my close friends. And we were like, okay, let's do like a novel chapter exchange. You write a chapter, I'll write a chapter, and then we'll exchange. And I wrote this for that exchange. And it was actually very similar to now. And I had no idea who any of the characters were. I didn't know what was going on. But Leslie was like, I want more. I love this. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'll just write a whole book around Leslie's delight because I love Leslie and she seemed so excited. And then I wrote a chapter in Antarctica to send to the grant. And then I was like, I can put these together and maybe that is like the story that I'm trying to tell. And I kind of went from there. So the prologue, parts of it have been in place from the very beginning and parts of it I changed after the whole book had been written and I knew what the heck it was about. I went back and I changed a bunch of the prologue. Yeah.
And did you always know you wanted it to be a novel and not, say, short stories?
Yes,
Yeah.
I definitely knew. I could feel it like even in the sentence structure. My short stories feel extremely different to me to write. I think about like when I write short stories, it's very sentence to sentence, but a novel, it's so much longer. And so it needs to be like much broader for me. And I knew that this was broad. This was not short story language to me.
Yeah. So listening to you read that, as I was telling you before we started, I had read this book a while back and then wanted to revisit it, and so I was listening to the audiobook. I actually could not tell 2 times listening to that prologue that reader was saying the word thunder. It just, I couldn't tell if it was thunder or something else, and I heard it when you read it. Have you ever wanted to narrate audiobooks, or would you have wanted to, or is that something that's just like you knew it was going to be someone else and the publisher kind of decides that? I'm asking because I have more students this semester, like probably half of my students in my class who are like audiobooks. If they can't find it on audiobook, they like, that's the first thing they want to do before they even get their hands on the book.
I listen to a ton of audiobooks, and I am pretty picky about readers. And I'm also picky about genre. Like, there are plenty of books that I would never think of reading on audio for some reason or another. But like fantasy novels, I'm always listening to on audiobook. And people have asked me like, oh, do you want to narrate your own book? Would you do that? I am always of the mind that like, if there are professionals out there, I want them to do it. You know, I don't fix my own carburetor. Like, probably I could with YouTube these days. I fixed my brakes once. But, you know, there are experts out there for a reason. So I was like, I want an expert audiobook reader to read this book. And I actually knew who I wanted. So the person who reads it, Saskia Marlevald, is somebody who I just loved her work in other books. And I will say I could not get, it was a very stressful experience trying to listen to my book on audio, so I have not listened to it.
Okay.
I listened just to see how she did certain accents. I think she big time bungled the Spanish, which bummed me out, and she really bungled, there's a character with a Boston accent, and I was like, oh my God, she really messed that up, but that's okay. Everything else, I think she did a really good job.
I don't think I noticed that.
Okay,
so
good.
it's probably because you're in tune to your characters and how you felt that they might sound.
Like, every author has these little like nitpicks with their audiobook reader, but I think overall she did an incredible job, and I would for sure hire her again. Although I am like interested in what it would be like to read my own book, but I'm not a trained actor, and so leave it to the professionals. That's how I feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a great question from one of my students. Zendaya wrote a few questions for me and said I could use them. One of them is, who would you like to collaborate on a book or a series with?
You mean like co-write?
Yeah.
I would not like to co-write with anybody. That's a hard question. Because to me, writing is so about like being in control. I am trying to think if I've ever co-written anything with anybody. I mean, when I was like in high school or earlier in elementary school, I was kind of co-writing with my best friend. So I don't know, maybe Nicole back there. She's a visual artist, so I feel like she's also a poet. But our collaboration would probably be like more, I would be doing the prose stuff, although who knows. But I still don't necessarily want to. But like, I guess in a dream, like,
A friend more than a...
yeah, but now I'm thinking like, whose attention do I want? Like, what? No, not for me. Yeah, not for me. For you. Yeah. She can write all the sex scenes. Yeah, I'll pass that off to her. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, yes, I do. Joanna Newsom.
Okay.
She is a niche singer-songwriter who plays the harp, who is my favorite singer, and I would like to collaborate with her.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, she would not want to collaborate with me. It's a good question, though.
Yeah, it is a really good question. Thank you for that one. I've got another one, another Zendaya question, which is, especially because you talked about all these, fictional worlds you were kind of extending through your fan fiction. Is there a fictional world you would like to live in or travel through if you could? Antarctica.
That seems so fictional to me.
I know.
Like
Very surreal.
The whole world is full of places that until I experience them, I only experience through fiction. So I don't know. Wow, that's a really good question. I mean, can I choose vibes? Yeah. Okay, I would like the vibes of a Joanna Newsom song. Go home and listen to Joanna Newsom. Okay. You're going to be like, what? She has a crazy voice. I'm trying to, like, all the magic systems I can think of are pretty scary.
Scary.
Well, I don't know. What do you think? What's your answer? Do you have an answer to
Yeah, do
that?
you have an answer?
I would have a mix of Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Thorns and Roses, but also a mix with Harry Potter.
She said Harry Potter and A Court of
Sarah
Thorns
J.
and
Maas.
Roses.
Yeah, I
Yes.
have read both of those. I don't think I want to live in either of them. Like, I often imagine who I would actually get to be in those situations, and I don't think I would be like the heroine princess. I think I would be.
Your own person and go live there.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just like, I'd probably be a tavern wench, you know, like I've spent a lot of my adult life as a waitress. Like that's probably what would happen. And I don't want to be a tavern wench. Like these fantasies, they don't have professors usually. Or I would have to be like Dumbledore, you know, or like Professor Trelawney. It's harder now to be an adult to imagine myself in the Harry Potter universe because I'm like, what are the professors doing, you know? Yeah, so I don't know. It's like a really great question. Yeah, I should write a magical professor book. I actually just read one called The Incandescent by Emily Tesh about professors at a magical high school, but it didn't, I wanted it to be better.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't have an answer. I wish I did.
I love that.
I don't want to live in this one either. I don't know.
No, I don't. It's scary.
Yeah, it's scary. The real world is scary enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have a question from my colleague, Dr. Kate Maurer, back there, who's helping me come up with some great questions for you because Dr. Kate is artistic in other ways, and I was thinking about that. We were thinking about that question for you. Are you artistic in other ways besides writing, and does that influence your writing?
I would say I'm more crafty than artistic. I always have some kind of project going. Right now, lately it's been quilting. So I've been quilting a lot. I sew clothing sometimes. I was into weaving briefly. I'll probably get back to it. I painted a picture last night. I just got some oil pastels. I doodle. I sketch. I play the guitar. I love karaoke. I would say I'm a jack of all trades, master of one. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Like writing is what I do, what I'm really, really serious about. Any other art I do, I feel it's like for pleasure and fun. And yeah, but I do have a lot of artistic friends. Yeah, a lot of artist friends.
And that sounds artistic to me, but I would feel the same way. I would be like, I like crafty things, but
Yeah.
who gets to call me an artist? Not me.
Yeah, I would not call myself an artist, but I would call myself a really enthusiastic craftsperson. Yeah.
I love that. So I already mentioned how I think a lot of our students as writers, it's more the confidence piece, I think, than the ideas. Like you have ideas in spades, and it's kind of that like worthiness of their ideas on the page. That is my favorite thing to see grow with student writers. So kind of a question in that vein is, what is something that you would tell your younger self or advice you would give to our student writers, especially to build that confidence, that courage even?
One thing that I always come back to and make my students do is finish your work. I think a lot of people who want to write start stuff and feel energy and confidence at the beginning, but then it gets hard. It's very hard to finish a full short story. It's hard to finish a novel. So I always start my fiction classes with flash fiction, like making students write a full story in about 1,500 words. And I make them do like 3 or 4 of them because I think that the confidence that you feel when you realize that you can complete a work is very meaningful. I remember finishing my first real short story and I was like buzzing. It's like I did it beginning to end. And it felt amazing. And I have a lot of people who want to write novels asking me like, oh, how do you get published? How do you do this? How do you that? And I'll say, well, do you have a full manuscript? And they're like, no, but I'm about halfway through. I'm like, I don't even want to talk to you until you finish your book. You cannot publish anything unless you finish something. So practice finishing your work to the best of your ability. And I think that gives me confidence, is reminding myself that I am able to finish a complete piece, and then try to find the people who seem to more or less understand what it is that you're trying to do, and listen to them and talk to them and try to figure out maybe who doesn't quite understand what you're trying to do, and don't worry so much about what they think, and befriend the people who like the things that you like, and befriend people who like to write the things that you like, and find like a writing community or a writing group, or like another person in your writing class, maybe your professor, who gives you the excitement, the social excitement of writing, because it is a very solitary activity, but it's also like, if you want to be read, that's an incredibly social experience. So you do have to find readers. And it's nice to have friends who are like, oh, I'm so excited about this for you. I'm so excited about this idea. Or even just friends who are excited about reading the same things that you are. But number one is finish your work, honestly. That's my biggest piece of advice for aspiring youth.
I love that. I would love to use the last 10 minutes if anyone in the audience has any questions that they want to ask Emma. Oh.
I would just like to kick off the Q&A, and I want you all to ask questions as well. But I have several students from my short stories class, and we have read From the Root.
Oh, cool.
We also read, she was talking about Leslie Arima, we read Windfalls by Leslie Arima, which was a troubling but favorite story for many.
Yeah.
But would you be willing to talk about that a little bit, like that story in particular, From the Root, and maybe where it came from, and maybe even a little bit more about the difference between writing a novel versus how you approach a short story, or where the ideas come from?
Yeah, that short story, this is something I didn't talk about at all, but I started out writing realistic literary fiction. So I didn't write fantasy until I wrote a whole literary fiction novel that my agent could not sell. And I was very upset, but not as upset as I thought I was going to be. And I was like sort of interrogating why that was. And I realized it's because I didn't like the novel I had written, and I wasn't proud of it. And I needed to get back to like the joy of writing. So I was like, what brings me joy? What has brought me joy? And the answer is fantasy fiction, that's where my like childhood heart lies. And so I Googled like how write fantasy fiction. I asked Google a lot of questions. Now the AI is messing with it because it actually answers me. It like talks back. I don't like that. But one of the first things that came up was this workshop called Clarion West, which is in Seattle. And it's a 6-week workshop for genre fiction, like fantasy and science fiction. You write a short story a week and you workshop for 3 hours a morning. There's 18 people. It's very intense. And then there's another one in San Diego called Clarion. So there's Clarion and Clarion West. Many fantasy writers that you've heard of went through these programs, which I didn't know until I was looking into it. Like George R.R. Martin has taught there multiple times. I think he went through it. Octavia Butler sort of founded the one that I went to in Seattle. A bunch of other people whose names are escaping me. The Expanse people. I don't know. The people that wrote The Expanse. They were like Ted Chiang. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I went to one of those. I went to the one in Seattle, and we had to write a short story every week. I had never written a fantasy or science fiction short story in my life. I got in because I wrote them like a pleading essay, and I submitted literary fiction. And in the essay, I was like, you might notice that this is not at all genre fiction, but that's because I've literally never written it. Please help me. So From the Root was the story, I think it was maybe the 4th or the 5th week. So it was my 4th or 5th story. And I, at the time, was very obsessed with like grotesque 18th century medical advancement. And I had read a lot about this doctor, actually who Dr. Dolittle and Jekyll and Hyde was based on, this guy John Hunter in England. He's a Scottish doctor who basically was one of the first doctors to say, if we're going to understand illness, we have to understand a healthy body. In order to understand a healthy body, we have to perform many autopsies. In order to perform autopsies, we need corpses. In order to get corpses, we have to dig them up from the graveyard. So he started this like grave digging, grave robbing craze that came all the way to the United States and swept New York also, where doctors were paying people to dig bodies up in order to examine them. And non-normative bodies were the most desirable because they were the hardest to find and told us things about medicine. And so these doctors were really obsessed with this one guy, Charles something or other, who was a giant in like a traveling freak show. And he was probably murdered by one of these doctors. And he had in his will that he did not want to have his body given to these doctors by any circumstances. But somehow it was this whole complicated thing where like he filled his coffin with lead and like tried to put them off the scent, but they did get his body. So I was fascinated by this, very interesting. So that's why I wrote the story. And I was thinking of like, I put it in like fantasy terms rather than just retelling the Charles what's-his-name story. And it feels different to me because when I think about a short story, the space is so much more compressed and small that every single sentence has to do more than one thing. Like it has to do double work. It can't just be describing a room. It also has to be giving you like point of view, describing how the character feels about the room. It has to show you something rather than just be like decorative description, which is not the case in a novel. I think that there's a lot more room in a novel to have, sentences that are doing one thing, essentially. So when I write short stories, I'm thinking about it sentence by sentence, and I also can like encapsulate it all in my mind at once, whereas a novel, I can't do that. Like I need so many external notes, whereas most short stories I can keep in my mind and I don't have to like plot or think about the structure. In part because I, at this point, have read and written so many short stories that the structure is sort of ingrained in me, and I go like emotional beat by emotional beat. I'm like, oh, she's going to feel this, and we're going to feel this, and then I want it to end like this. So I don't know if that answers your question. But
Follow-up question?
yeah, now you learned about John Hunter.
It's wild.
Yeah, it's really crazy. There's an amazing biography of him called The Knife Man, if any of you were intrigued by that. It's fascinating to me. Yeah, other questions?
Hit it, Zendaya.
I don't know if you have this one on there, but it was on the list about your writing process and like you have like a certain ritual that you do before you have to write. Like some people will go to their special room or have a blanket or stuff like that.
I'm going to repeat it just for the Zoom.
Yeah.
Zendaya asked about a writing ritual you have to do before you get in the zone, like a certain, blanket going into a space and how you set yourself up to get in the zone for writing if you have a certain ritual.
I do have a ritual. I can write in multiple places like coffee shop, couch, desk, office at school, plane, but I need to do it in the morning. I'm a morning writer, drink coffee, and this is where I'm like, oh, this is a weird ritual. I don't eat until I've written for the day, but I never eat breakfast. Like, I'm not really a breakfast person anyway, but like today I ate at 4 because I was writing and I didn't finish until 4. And then I eat like a giant mound of food, like a snake. And then I'll probably eat again at 11. So I'm not recommending this, but that's my ritual. And coffee on this side. Coffee, notebook, computer, coffee here because I'll knock it on my computer otherwise. And that's all. But I can write anywhere. But I have to have the coffee, the notebook, computer, no food. Lots of coffee. Yeah. If I don't have coffee, I get stressed and believe I can't write, but it's not true. I can overcome any of these things if I have to, but I prefer not to. My writer friends with kids are like, this is clearly the ritual of someone with no children. But that's why I don't have children. Yeah.
Exactly. Anybody else have any questions for Emma?
How much do you write?
Oh.
Sorry.
You said that your favorite genre to write is like fantasy. Like, what's your favorite to read?
Favorite genre
Fantasy.
to read. What is my favorite genre to read? Honestly, I hope this isn't a cop-out. I love all genres. I really read, I'm genre agnostic. For a while, I would say, like, I don't read Westerns, really, but then I just read True Grit, which is a standout of the genre, and it's incredible, and I'm about to read Lonesome Dove with a friend. Wish me luck. And then for a while, I said that I didn't read romance, and then my friend Leslie convinced me to start reading romance,
yeah.
and now I read romance. I love mystery. I love literary fiction. I like crime. I would say I don't really read a ton of nonfiction. That's probably the least of what I read. But I love all genres. Love fantasy. A really good fantasy book is probably still my favorite genre, but I am picky
Yeah.
and judgmental, especially because now I'm doing it, you know.
Amelia, you had a question too.
How much do you write per day?
How much do you write per day?
It totally varies. I want to be a person that writes every day, but I often don't. I'll set a word count. I'll be like, today I'm going to write 1,500 words, and I'll write 11 words. And then the next day I'll be like, okay, I'll write 250 today, and then I'll write like 1,000. So it totally varies. When I'm not teaching, like in the summer, I write more, as you might imagine. But when I'm teaching, I write less.
Are you pretty strict on yourself that you write every day?
I go through periods of strictness, and I go through periods of laxness. Yeah. Right now I'm in a strict period. It's been like a week and a half I've been tracking. I've written every single day. But spring break really screwed me up. Before that I was writing every single day. But then spring break happened and I didn't write for like 3 weeks. Yeah. I try to be strict, but it's hard when I'm the one being strict, you know?
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you ever inspired by a book to watch a movie or vice versa?
Ooh.
The question was, are you ever inspired by books to watch a movie or vice versa? Good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. I, unfortunately, am not a big like movie person. I don't watch a lot of movies. I would say TV. I watch more TV than movies probably. So I just, for example, watched the television show Heated Rivalry. Anybody seen it? And then I immediately read the book. And the book is like a bad version of the TV show, I have to say. And then I watched a TV show called Vladimir on Netflix. And I didn't like it, but I'm going to read the book because I'm told that the book is really good. So I often will watch something and then read the book. But I can't think. I tend to stay away from adaptations of books I love. I get protective of them. One of my all-time favorite books is a novella called Train Dreams by Dennis Johnson. And they just made it into a movie, and everybody is telling me it's amazing, and I'm like, I refuse. I will not watch this movie. I can't. Have you seen it? Is it amazing? Okay.
No.
My mom called me up and was like, you have to see this movie, and I was like, I'm gonna hang up on you. So yeah, it's more likely that I'll watch something and then read the book than read the book and watch something.
Sorry, I was trying to listen while I was teaching next door. I apologize. I was going to ask, and pardon the blasphemy, do you avoid AI like the plague, or do you ever use it to generate ideas or?
This is
Absolutely not. No, I don't.
This is AI for the live stream. Yeah, to
Oh.
avoid AI
Yeah.
like the play.
I do avoid AI. I have in my lifetime used AI exactly once for a math problem that I just could not figure out. And I asked Google how to do it, and it told me. And I think that that is the extent that I've used AI. Yeah, no, I don't use AI. I don't, no.
No.
Because I actually had a period where I decided to embrace AI and learn it, and I noticed that my writing skills significantly deteriorated in the span of 3 months. So just
Yeah.
wondering as a writer, how
I think that even for idea generation, it's interesting because I've asked people questions. I am fully against it, but I'm not totally closed-minded in terms of conversing with people that use it. I will never use it. But even idea generation, it's like your ideas are what make your writing interesting. Your voice is what makes your writing interesting. Otherwise, we could just be reading like the backs of shampoo bottles. You know, that's how I feel. A writer, like point of view and positionality is what makes a work of literature. And I've seen my students try to use it to generate ideas, and the ideas are so terrible because it's just like regurgitated ideas from other places, and they don't get the personality of the student. And even word choice is like, you know, somebody who grew up in Massachusetts, like I did, in a very particular like landscape, my like visual lexicon is different from somebody who grew up in North and South Dakota, like on the plains. We will just have a different way of looking at things and describing things that will come out even subtly in our work. And AI has no point of view. It's also, okay, I will stop ranting about AI soon, but it's not intelligence, it's a sentence maker. Like AI, what it does is generate sentences, but it's not making meaning, it's putting together sentences. And that is totally different. So I will never use AI. I'm glad you stopped. Welcome back.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to understand the experience, and since I'm not a writer per se, I kind of just used it as for utility, but then I realized that even the skills that I had developed over many years were disappearing rapidly.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching out for us in English. Joseph is one of our biology faculty members.
Thank you.
I love that. Are there any questions in the chat or any last questions anyone wants to ask? I love that ending gesture to our students that your point of view matters and is irreplaceable, and your ideas and your voice are invaluable. So I think that's a great place to leave things. Amen. I want to thank everyone on the live stream. Love you all. Thanks for being on the Zoom side. Thank you everyone for coming, especially our students.
Thank
and
you.
Thank you, Emma.
Thank you. Thank you.